Hi, I'm Danielle with Resilient Stories, and I am excited to be a returning presenter today, ready to unveil some new updates and hopefully get some help with some challenges.
Danielle Dahl, Resilient Stories. Give her a hand.
You guys are cute. Thank you very much. Okay, the sun's in my eyes over this picture. All right. So I think most everybody in here knows me. My name's Danielle. I'm the founder of Resilient Stories. When I first presented, I gave everybody quite a bit of my background and why I started Resilient Stories. As I've been out in the community more talking about what Resilient Stories is and why I started it, I realized that my story played a large role in why I started this. I often tell people I've been building it my whole life and didn't know it. But it all really boiled down to that I very firmly believe that no one should walk through the hardest parts of our human experience by themselves. And last time I presented, I talked about how it doesn't have to be some big traumatic story. It could be whatever's been the hardest part of your journey. Like, we all need support during the hardest parts, and we all have one. So Resilient Stories started as a website, you can see on here, and then it branched out into these in-person events. And through first the website and then the events, what I realized was that people needed another avenue for connection, for help, for sharing their story that isn't clinical and is choice-based. And there's a lot of science about how storytelling is healing for both the storyteller and the listener. And so I just realized that sharing their story on the website and then meeting in person for the events gave people an additional choice, an additional door to be able to share their story and connect with others. So when you guys think of the word story, right, I think most of us generally think of an event, something that happened to us. What I've noticed is we all have that, but what we also have is the belief about the role we played in it, the meaning that we made and took away from that story, and the impact it left us with. And I think that a space like Resilient Stories lets people explore that in a safe way. So since the last time I was here, and also from the first time I presented, one of the pieces of advice I got was to make a book. So I did. We have the coloring book. We have Voices of Resilience Volume 1, and Voices of Resilience Volume 2 is going to be available for pre-order on June 6th. June 6th is also Spark to Heal, my big event that Leif was talking about back there. Spark to Heal started after the monthly events, and it's one of my favorite things that we've brought into the world with Resilient Stories. It's a way for people to get on stage and share their stories. We have some keynote speakers who are used to doing that from a stage, but the bulk of the event is what we call fireside chats, and these are regular, everyday people who have stories that they've never thought they'd be able to get on a stage and share and tell. And it's very empowering for them, and it's incredible for the audience to realize what people just in their general community kind of have survived and gone through. So it's one of my favorites. Okay, the biggest update I have for you guys and my current challenge is I am launching Resilient Stories workshops. This is going to be a licensure structure for the events that I do here in town. So the structure of each event is there is hands-on crafting, optional story sharing, and witnessing within the group. So that's the structure, and then there's a closing. And I got to really get to witness this over the last 2 years that we've been doing these events. And it's just, I knew it would be therapeutic and I knew it would be helpful for people, but I didn't realize how much they would connect to each other and be able to really just kind of calm down and be able to answer questions in a way they didn't know. I often find people share more in there than they thought they would when they first came in, and they're always very grateful to have a space to do so. So I thought, I want this to be able to be everywhere and more places. So one of the ones we're going to start off with is the Tree of Life wreath, which was one of our pretty popular ones. I'll just pass this around. You guys can look at it. But what we learned from these events is that when people's hands are going, they are calmer. So what happens is you ruminate a lot less when your hands are busy. You also kind of anchor in your attention, and you're able to filter out all of the noise and focus on what you're doing. And then journaling helps people externalize their experience. And so it's kind of like getting what you've been holding on to inside of you out, and then having a safe place to be witnessed while you do that is very empowering for people. So that's what we learned. This is, and you guys can't probably see it, but these are just some photos from some of the events that we've done. And you can see they usually draw in a pretty decent crowd. We have a lot of people who come back. We have a new couple of people who show up, and then they come back, and so we just kind of keep growing. And that's what I have for you guys today. Thank you. Thank you. Questions?
Great job, Danielle. Who has the first question? You want to go?
I'm going to put her on the spot in a minute.
As someone that has been at one of these events and kind of helped presented, would the I'm going to call it a franchise right now.
No, don't call it a franchise.
But
a licensee.
Okay. Would you have like kits for them, or would it be?
So yes. So when you purchase a license, what you will get is 6 of the workshop guides, all of the materials. So I'll pass these around too. This is the workbook for the Tree of Life event. So you would get that in a file that you can't recreate. That one's a fixed file. That particular event, we also had gemstones. And so this comes in this kit too. And then you get like the flyer, you get a video from me, you get kind of the business model of how I've built them as far as ticketing, finding sponsors, things like that. Since it's not a franchise, they are able to charge whatever they want. I have no control over how they market or who they partner with. It's just kind of a complementary thing to whatever they're already doing. But yeah, those are what you would get.
Who's next?
I see that you have 5 beta spots on there. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so I am currently building the host portal. And the host portal is where so you have to apply to be a person who buys a license. You can't just buy it off of the internet and then have it. There's an application process. You have to sit and meet with me, and then we decide if that's a good fit. And then once you're approved and pay, then you would have access to the host portal. And so I have these beta spots because I built that. And so we haven't really played with it and tried it in real life. So I've discounted these first 5 spots so that we can kind of figure out if there are things we need to work on throughout that process.
Okay, so you said this is your current challenge. So
Yes.
tell us about what is the challenge?
So, well, there's been several challenges. So first was I've never licensed anything, right? So I had to figure out how we were going to make that work. Had to figure out what I thought pricing should be, right? All of those things. And then I have all of these documents created. So I have the licensee overview, the agreement, all of these things. And then I have each of the pieces that come in the kits. And I didn't know how to package them. And so I've just resolved that problem with our host portal. And now my biggest challenge is, now that I have it packaged and now that it's ready to go, finding the best fits for it and trying out my beta spots.
So can you tell us who is a good fit?
Yeah.
And like if they were to go and apply, who are you looking for?
Yeah. So I am looking for licensed therapists who want a supplemental income and can understand that this is not therapy. But therapists make great. One of the things you need to be able to do this is to be able to hold a space steadily, safely, ethically, and therapists kind of have that built in. But this is not therapy, it's not clinical, so they just need to be able to differentiate between that. And then myself, I'm not a licensed therapist, but I am a mental health advocate and what they call an allied professional in the mental health field. And so other people like me, life coaches, breath workers, holistic practitioners, things like that, where they have a basic understanding of well-being and mental health, and they're able to hold a space and talk. And they also have to be structured enough to carry out the event planning portion of this, and they have to be willing to stick to the structure of the way the events flow.
So I have two questions for you, Danielle.
Okay.
One, is this simply local or do you have bigger aspirations? And two, have you thought of community organizations, fellowships, churches, youth programs, although I don't know if youth is
Teenage youth is
applicable.
Yeah. So another update, not pertaining to resilient stories per se, but a life update is, if you've known me for a little while, you've heard me talk about I'm going to get in an RV and live in it and drive around the country. So I have decided that I'm very, very close to that. So no, this is not going to be a local thing. I want this. This is part of a bigger plan that I have, but this is the first step of that bigger plan. So I would like to see this in other cities. You can add on a I come to you and facilitate and help you do the first one option. And so my idea is we'll just be driving around in our RV going where these are. So yeah, so if you know anybody out of town, that would be great. And then to answer your second question, who was it who said, oh, it was Sam, that I collaborate with other people. And that I should have included in the ideal fit, because you really do have to have a sense of collaboration to make these work as best as they can. So, for example, I have done them for a couple of nonprofits. I've done them I've had interest in doing them with the college. So, yes, you could do those in all of those spaces. I also partner with businesses like Sharice's, right? So I'll host the event here, and then I just make sure that whatever the event is also supporting her business. So I think the two we've done here so far have been bottle painting, right? So rather than me ordering bottles and paint and finding somewhere else to host the event, I just asked Sharice if I can host the event here. She gets advertising for the month that I'm promoting the event. I purchase all the bottles and stuff from her, and we collaborate that way. The Hardin Library has had me come down 3 or 4 times, and we've done the candle making event there. We're doing the Zen Garden one on the 10th. So if anybody wants to travel to Hardin and come do a Zen Garden event with me on the 10th, I'll be at the library. But yes, those make great partners and great venues to host them.
Everyone's got to know.
So if I become one of the, what do you call them?
Licensees.
And I spend this 1983 or whatever the beta amount is, but let's just go with the 1983. How soon can I expect to make that money back? Like, is this just like an additional revenue stream for, like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So this is from 2025. So we had 110 participants come through Resilient Stories events. This was our Flower Crown event, in case you were wondering what that is. The well-being topic for that one was self-esteem. So this is kind of how they work. That tree one, if you guys have the journal, is about being rooted and grounded, right? This one was about self-esteem. But 110 people total, and then $7,000, was a little over $7,000 in direct workshop revenue. So those are just simply tickets sold. Part of the business model that I use is having businesses, and most of them are therapists, coincidentally enough, sponsor tickets. And so they write it off as advertising because they get put on the flyer and all of the Facebook marketing. And then I give away free tickets. So that totaled a little over 2,000. So just from the events alone was just under 10,000. But I've also built and made lots of connections that have turned into other things too. So direct workshop revenue was this. I would say, depending on the event and the time of year that you do it, for example, May is always terrible for a lot of events, just because it's so busy with Mother's Day, graduation, things like that. So this last event, the profit was not spectacular on it, but usually it's about $500 to $600 an event just in ticket sales. So depending on how connected a person was in the community and how comfortable they were going out and finding additional sponsor revenue, they could make their money back 2 to 3 events.
And so then do I just run these same events? Like how many kits are there? How many types of events are there?
So you get 6 events in your first purchase for the 1983. So 1983 gets you 6. So the Tree of Life and the Zen Garden are the first 2. The other 4 I'm still plugging in there, but you get 6. And then you can run those 6 for as long as you'd like. Once you purchase the license for those 6, I'm not going to make you relicense every year and all this stuff. Once you have the first 6, you can host those. You can add, there'll be options in the library for 3, like a bundle of 3 events, if you want to add in new ones.
So, how much support do you give to the individuals who purchase your projects, and what does that look like? Because I know once you start scaling, that
Yep.
that requires time, energy, and resources. And then, do you connect them with organizations? Is it like an entrepreneur where they start from ground zero, or how does that work?
Yep. So because it's not a franchise and it is a license, I'm kind of limited in what I can request and have people do. So what they get is they get a run of show for the event. So it's all laid out with time slots about what you would say here, and it all pertains to the event. So the topic, for example, in the Tree of Life one, there's a whole section about being grounded, and we go through the journal. And so all of that is in the run of show that they get. There'll also be a video in the host portal that they can watch some clips of us doing that event. And then in their materials that they read, the host licensing event and the overview and all of that, there's a lot of information in there. And then they get the business model and structure kind of laid out for them. There is an option for them to pay extra to have me physically come and kind of walk them through the first one. And then there is also an option if they want me to manage the ticket sale portal, because a lot of people are not very techy, that I can do that for them too. But I don't dictate where they do it, who they partner with, what they charge, any of those things. But all of that will be very spelled out in the documents they get and in the videos. So there's that support there. And then of course, you can always email if you have questions.
So back up in the clouds, in terms of growth and dreaming, do you have a retreat-based modality for this type of thing? I think that would play really well, and I'm sure you've thought of it.
Yep. So, I host an annual retreat. So last year was our first one. Our next one is the end of June. So we have Spark the Heal June 6th, and then our Resilient Stories retreat is June 26th through the 29th. And that one, what we do is we do 2 of these events at the retreat. And then we also incorporate more specific storytelling, things like writing a letter to your future self and those kinds of things. And so, yes, you could do a retreat. So I don't have that set up yet, though, because the way the licensing works is you have your own business. So I'm going to pick on Sarah. She's not here. But like Sarah has her Redefining Love and her workshops and all of those things that she already does. So this, if she wanted to purchase the license to do this, she would be Redefining Love. So there's not a picture of the flyer up here, but the flyer you get in the kit has a spot for your business logo and a spot for the Resilient Stories Workshops logo. So how that would be presented is, Redefining Love is hosting a Resilient Stories workshop. And so that's kind of how that would feel. So if somebody else wanted to have a retreat and then do a Resilient Stories workshop at their retreat, they could do that. But I'm not in the mindset yet of licensing out the whole retreat itself.
So innovative.
So how, what's all included in the kit? Like with one kit, how many tickets could you potentially sell?
Yeah.
And can you purchase more materials or if you need it?
So the entirety of the kit is all of the materials and a supply list for the event. So for the Tree of Life one, you would log into the host portal and there's going to be a recommended supply list. Now you can get it from there. Just click the link and take it and go to Amazon and buy it. Or you can source it out locally if that's something you want to do. You don't have to buy it from where I got it. I just give it as a suggestion. But you do get all of the supplies that you need in a list. You get the journal PDF, so you don't have to recreate that. You get the flyer template, so that you can just replace the sponsors, replace the logos, things like that. You get the facilitation structure, so the run of show, the pacing, all of that in the kit. You also get video, all that stuff. So essentially you get everything but the materials to run the kit. Those you have to purchase. As far as how many tickets could a person sell, that really depends on a couple of different factors. So it would depend on the venue size that you use. For example, when I come to Sharice's or when I come to Casual Space, I can do 30-ish people because there's plenty of room. When I hosted at Bar John's, her space is a little smaller, so I usually have to do 2 separate time slots, and there's only about 12 fits in there nicely. So that one I kind of cap around 20, 22, because I don't want to do a third slot, right? So it really just depends on the venue. And then if I have a co-host, which is another thing that I talk about in the documentation for the kit, like Sam was saying, she co-hosted it with me. So that event was the Zen Garden event. And we talked about like how the spine affects well-being, and how ways to feel really grounded and centered in your spine can also help you feel grounded and centered, which is what you get when you rake a Zen garden, the feeling of grounding. So that's kind of how the co-hosts factor in. With a co-host, I'm comfortable about 30 people. Without a co-host, you have to be careful because you have to manage all of what people are going through in the event. Like these journal questions they're not so deep that they should send anyone into like crisis mode, but they are deeper than like a surface level conversation. So you want to be able, that's why part of who would make a good fit is somebody who is aware of mental health and well-being aspects, and also is just like warm and steady, because people have to feel safe or that doesn't work. So if you have too many people and you're running around crafting help and you're not able to kind of hold the space and help people move through what they're writing, it gets a little challenging. So.
I just have one follow-up question. Sorry. So do you offer any help with marketing their workshops, or do you teach them things or things they should do to market it? What does that look like?
So I give them the flyer, and I give them the structure of going and approaching businesses and therapists about sponsoring tickets, and I tell them what has worked for me. I don't do it for them or help them through that unless they purchase that. Like that's where I'll run the ticket site for them and set that up and help them come and do all of those things. So that's a separate thing. But in the actual kit that you get for 1983, you just get all of it written and laid out about how I marketed, what I do, types of businesses to go and talk to see if they'd like to sponsor an event, types of places to go partner with to see if they'd host an event, people to ask as a co-host. Like they get all of that in kind of the documentation that they get.
So it's either like do it yourself or do it for them kind of
Yes,
thing.
yes.
So let's just say that somebody in here had painted rocks for a side thing for a business, but really for the community, like MT Rock Girl, let's just say, for example. And let's say her initials were Janine. And anyway, so would she be considered a partner, or could she be a licensee? Well, what would be the best? Or either way.
Yeah, I mean, that would depend. Like if Janine and I are here locally, so Janine would be somebody I would partner with if we wanted to do a whole rock painting event. Janine also comes to these events, so maybe she can share a little about what she thinks of them. I would appreciate that. But yes.
She's got a quick question.
Okay.
So as a co-host, the other thing was we ran out of materials, and I was able to run and go grab materials.
Yes. So
that might help answer that question.
I joke when I do them that the universe is really testing me, because I named it Resilient Stories, and then I just gave myself the opportunity to show that every single event that I do. And so inevitably there is an opportunity where it's like, okay, this is how we adapt in real time, and this is how we are able to, pivot. And so that particular event, it happened to be people wanted way more sand in their Zen gardens than I anticipated they would first put in their sand. And so when you're a licensee, you will have the benefit of all of these things that I have learned through the 24-ish of these that I have done. And I now know to go update the supply list that you actually need 5 containers of sand and not, 3 or 4. And so you get that benefit of the experience of having done them a few times. But it's always something, and we just roll with it. On Janine.
Well, coming to those events, I've really enjoyed meeting new people, and it's really made me look at my mental health and the issues that I have in my life. And I do rock painting; it's my therapeutic thing. I've been through cancer. I have a disease in my feet that causes me not to be able to walk on my feet without these boots, and it's really brought me out of my shell and looked at my mental health and the people I've met. It's just been amazing, and meeting you and just the networking, just getting and being able to have a safe place to do that in. They're really good to go to.
And that's been one of my favorite things, is watching you guys build these little communities within the bigger community that is the participants of the workshop, right? So we have 30-ish of you who all kind of come at different points, one or the other, right? But all of a sudden, people start doing each other's hair, and they start hanging out at pools together, and they start having parties at their houses. And these are all people who've had trauma or addiction or illness, right? Like, they're all people who've had some hard part of their human experience, and they've found people to share it with, and they've built friendships and communities, and it's just beautiful for me to watch.
So you've done 24 of these events, and when I purchase the kit, the license to do these, I only get 6. Do I get to pick the 6 that I have?
Nope. So the 6 that you get initially are the 6 that are not really like seasonally related. Part of the way these events are structured is they kind of go along with the season or what's happening in like the earth, or they're a little woo-woo-y. So they're kind of built that way. And so the first 6 are kind of the core staple events. And then as you can add on in groups of 3, you get some that are a little more like, the winter and holiday or those kinds of focused events.
And so have you repeated any of the 6?
I have, yes. So and I've repeated them, but also changed them up. So flower arranging, for example, is one of the 6 that you will get. The flower arranging workshop, Janine, you did that one, yes? You didn't do any of the flower ones? No, how did that happen? Okay. I don't know how that happened, but the flower one, so there's a spring version, and then there is a fall version, and then I adapted it into the flower crown version. So with the actual flower arranging ones, we talk about the Japanese art of flower arranging and how they use minimal space, and how they how it's really about being intentional and purposeful about where you place each bloom. And we talk about what each bloom symbolizes and what it means to you to put in your vase to take home and have. And so that was a really fun one to do.
So again, you're not answering my question. So how many times can I do these? Like, if I buy these 6, is it really feasible that I'm going to do these 6 every single year when you recommend, before I have to buy more?
Yeah. So I think that really depends on the size of the market you're in. If you are in a big city that, you could host an event one weekend and have this portion or population of the city come, and then you could host an event, the same one, next month, and have a different part of the city or population come, or have a partner that you can reach out to at the library or things like that. Because that's where I'll do one event here in town, and then I'll repeat it at the Hardin Library. And so depending on the capacity of your town or city, you could cycle through them. I would say 6 would last you at least a year that you could do and still sell tickets and have people come. If you're like me, I just like to offer something new, so I keep making a new one. But I could.
So this is really, you're designing it so that this is only a year. I pay $19.83, and then I make whatever I make off of that 1 year, and then I have to come back to you and buy more.
You would probably want to come back and buy an additional set of 3 and run those for a little while, but then you could always revisit the first 6 you have during year 3, right? Like, once it's been a while, then you could bring it back.
It's a separate event, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. If repeating them, like if you find that, you ran it this one week and you heard from a bunch of people that they couldn't come that week because it was graduation or whatever it is, right? Then it would be up to you if you wanted to try and run it again the following month. And depending on your market and your collaborative, people and the amount of people in your city, that would be what I would use to decide if I could run it again.
So this may be a question for the room, not necessarily for you, Danielle, but as we're talking about this, I'm thinking about it is community building and it is creative. And when you work with different groups, you get different responses and different energies. I'm a little woo woo as well. So in a community like our size, and again, this is for the room, just based off a community like our size, if someone locally wanted a health care provider, mental health provider wanted to purchase a license, what do you see as a community our size? Like this seems really regenerative itself, the program itself.
Yep.
So in a community like ours, 2-3 different licensees, you and one other, I get like if you're in a bigger urban area where you have neighborhoods and boroughs, it can be exponential. But again, to the room, like as we're brainstorming, I'm assuming you've thought of this. Do you have a baseline that you kind of are looking at?
Yep.
And then I'd be interested to see what the room thinks in terms of a community the size of Billings and the surrounding area. I mean, we have a huge pull. Does that question make sense?
Yep. So the way I kind of have it structured, and then I'll let you guys weigh in and answer that, but the way I kind of have it structured is it's one licensee per 75,000 people in a zip code that like touches, right? So here in Billings, we have several zip codes. And if you were, say, in Laurel and you were a licensee, it would be your Laurel zip code and then the like King Avenue West, right? Like that would be kind of the area that I would use to gauge the 75,000 people. And then there would be me, right? And it's kind of these other zip codes. So, and not that you have to stay in that zip code when you collaborate, but just that's how I would, that I would map it out for people. So that's kind of the number I had in my head. Did you guys have thoughts or?
So as somebody who's worked in the boutique industry where zip code protection was a big thing, how are you going to mitigate if somebody has their zip code protection but decides to do an event in somebody else's zip coded protected area?
Yep. So I'm not.
That could get sticky.
Yes. So I'm not going to really have it where it's zip code protected. I'm just only, since you can't buy this on the internet on your own, you have to come through the application process. If I already have someone, say in Billings, who, let's not use me, but someone was here already doing it, and then I had somebody else from Billings apply, like I would just only sell those 2 licenses. And then there is no, like the person in Laurel couldn't come to the Heights or the person in the Heights couldn't go out that way. It's just, I think that 2 people, I'm only using the zip codes to gauge the population that is in the area. Does that make sense?
It does. That still sounds realistic.
Okay.
Okay. Just. So, the biggest problem with a lot of that is you sell those 6 events to one person. You sell the 6 events to another person who's in that same zip code, and all of a sudden you have all of these repeat events that they're not getting to repeat and get the benefit of. It's 2 people competing with the same events. It's kind of like somebody all of a sudden taking all of my paintings and teaching all of my paintings in my same zip coded area. So then the customer base is saturated with the same 6 events.
Okay. So how did zip code protection work when you?
If you apply and you get approved for your zip code, you operate within your zip code. Okay. Anybody else who applies is not allowed to operate within that zip code, period, end of story. So if you had somebody who applied for Billings zip code, they are not allowed to operate in Laurel.
Okay.
Or Joliet.
Okay.
So it's exclusive. It makes people feel special. Okay. And the application feel more special. But then you're also offering them that protection of the zip code. It's really, you have to be like,
Okay.
rules are important.
Okay. Thank you for that.
You guys are so funny. In the beginning, I couldn't get anybody to ask a question. Now you can't shut up.
I've been sitting here thinking of a thoughtful question for you and trying to be helpful, but all I could think was like, okay, I've got to go to one of these. But Sharice talking about that, it was like I've seen a model before where there was some conflict with people being a little too close together, and I don't think miles apart necessarily does it justice because you could have several different communities that could work with. Mm-hmm. One thing that I've seen work better is when say you have people that it's like, ooh, if it's a little borderline, they could have a lot of overlap depending on their communities that they're going to be targeting and serving. Mm-hmm. I've seen it work better if, like, since you're asking them for applications, right, you can say, like, hey, how about the three of us sit down and come up with some, collaborating together and say, like, how about I'll plan on doing these in this order. I'll kind of stay over on this side. When I am going to go more towards your side, I'll just let you know so that you're not doing the same one there, so that they both can benefit. They're not stepping on each other's toes, and it's still representing resilient stories well, right. And still serving them both well. Yeah. I think I've seen that work better than if they see each other as competition.
Right. I don't like that.
No, and it defeats the purpose because this is so good, and there's lots of people that want to come to these. Mm-hmm. If it's handled well, I think that could be like a really good.
And they could even be each other's like co-hosts for the events, right? Mm-hmm. So one, if you haven't, one person's an expert on this well-being topic or whatever, they can go and co-host over there, and I can see collaboration working. So thank you. That's how I make it through the day, Sherry.
One of the things that strikes me, because I've worked with other communities, is maybe you have a master calendar year-round where people can submit their events, all of your licensees, and then that way everybody knows, and if they want to help, they can, and then you can start to create a community. That way it's all together.
So that is actually in the host portal that I built. When you are a licensee, you put that information in the host portal, which event you did, the date you did it, and then there is also, no one's asked this question yet, but I'm going to tell you anyway. There is at the end of each event, there is like a little survey that the participants would take. So I've been giving that out via paper for the last 24 of these. And it asks things like, what did you like about the event? How could we improve? I've only had one person put something in the improve spot in the entire 24 of these I've done, and that was they wanted wider chairs. And I was like, okay, great. But that was really it. Most people have really enjoyed them. And so that will be at the end of each event. They'll do it electronically this time, though, so I'm not trying to figure out how to get paper and all of these things. So the participants will scan it, they'll fill out the survey, and in that it's going to ask about the host as well, so that I have some ability of, seeing if there's a host problem that we need to kind of get in there and train and, do that kind of thing. So
I just had kind of a comment about maybe you already have this in your materials, but something so like they pay the $19.83 and they can do basically any number of events they want. But maybe something that would be helpful, like the average amount someone spends in materials and marketing for the workshop. So that can be like, okay, this is my investment. I'm going to be, this far in to make money, just because that's not all that they'll have to spend. So to help people get an idea, like, what the total investment would be to do these and when you can expect to be making a profit on it and everything.
So the cost of the materials really depends on the event. So the first 6 you get are kind of a mix of some of the ones that had a higher supply cost and the lower. Yep. And they'll see that on the supply list, like which this one cost approximately this much. So they can always start out with the lower supplied costs first, recoup some money in that first event, and then maybe put on one that had a higher supply cost. So they'll be able to look at the 6 and see which ones have a higher cost than the others to put on. And then, like I said, it's really been an average of about 500 an event that I've profited. And as far as marketing goes, that's where the benefit of collaboration comes from, because all of my business sponsors, and I give away about 5 to 7 tickets each event. And the way we give those away is on a Facebook collaboration. So we right? Where both pages are participating. You've got to tag your friends, all of these things. And so with each event, I have access to Sharice's Bitterroot Sip and Paint page of people. And then we give away a ticket from Sharice. So like I get exposed to new people with each business that sponsors a ticket. So I only ever, if I market with a cost outside of that, it's a $20 Facebook ad. That's all. And I almost consistently sell out every event. So there's not a high marketing cost to this when you collaborate and partner with other people.
One question I had that I don't think you covered yet. Do you help these individuals, licensees, find venues? Because you're obviously connected here. You'll be able to find venues that are either free or close to free, because that could be a stumbling block. Or
I have not ever paid for an event.
Good.
Space.
That's because you got great collaboration.
Yes. So what I will do for people is give them ideas of places. So places that make bookshops that have a workshop room space, libraries, community centers, nonprofits with enough space, art studios, those types of venues make really good places to host an event. And usually you can say, I'm going to be marketing this event for 4 weeks and your logo is on everything because this is where the event is held. So the businesses, they get the collaboration during that one ticket giveaway, and then they're on the flyer. But every post I make, regardless of which business collaboration I'm giving away a ticket from, has where the event is being held. So they get a whole bunch of recognition for that 4 weeks that's going on. And then I bring 30-ish people who may not always come to your space your space. And so I know At Casual Space is great because when we're all done with what we're making, they all go shop. Right? And so it works out.
They probably wouldn't have otherwise gone to that.
Right. If she was going to charge me $30 or $60 to rent the room, I would have went somewhere else. And instead, she has my 30 people all buying a $10 thing when they walk out the door. So it works.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
So I'll explain that, but I won't handhold and take them because they know their community better than I do.
Sure.
So they would be able to find places like that.
2 comments. One is totally envious about you getting in an RV and leaving. I don't know how you do that. Figure that should be a presentation in itself. But I love it.
Well, this is part of that.
Yeah. A dignity-centered way to offer non-clinical reflective workshops in your community. And so obviously the idea, because some people, because I'm from the mental health world, as you know, and so some people, I'll pick on guys, aren't always willing to go to a therapist. For years everybody told me that was a sign of weakness, right? And it's not. It's a sign of strength. But it took me 50 years to figure that out.
Yeah.
But my point being is an event like this really kind of breaks down the barriers and helps people. It normalizes, right? It destigmatizes mental health.
Absolutely.
And then if people do need additional help, they can get that, or they can keep coming to events.
Yep. It's like Sarah had said in her presentation that it's kind of like a little mini gateway into therapy, right? And that has happened. I've had people come to an event and then they've gone and found a therapist after. The other thing that I find, and it was kind of in that what problem do we solve, is really the gap between you might go see your therapist once a month or every 2 weeks. And you talk about kind of the same thing. There's kind of a looping, right? Like we go over and over, right? And then when you come into a new space, not to replace it, this is not clinical therapy, so it's not replace therapy. This is just another space to come and...
More complimentary, really.
Yes, it's very complimentary, which is why... And so when I first... This is a small segue. When I first started when I had this idea to find business sponsors to pay for marketing, for me, like they would pay me for marketing and then I would give away the ticket. I originally thought that the bulk of that income stream for me was going to be from businesses who wanted to market. What I have found is my biggest supporters, my biggest financial people who purchase things are therapists. And I had thought they might view it as like, oh, she's, competing or she's right. And it was not that at all. What happened, how this happened was I had someone coming to my events and she would go and see her therapist like the following week. She'd come to an event and she'd go see her therapist. And she was always talking about, well, at this Resilient Stories event, we did this and we talked about this. And then the therapist was able to hear something she hadn't heard in the conversation prior that she'd been seeing this person. And then she was able to delve into that a little deeper. And so then she sought me out and was like, what do you do? Where do you find this person? So, and then she ended up being one of my first sponsors. And she sponsors everything I do. She sponsors it, and she doesn't even want more clients. She just wants to sponsor it because it helps. I had another person who was coming, and this was in the very beginning. This was like event 4, and she had been coming for like 3 of them, and she was in like an outpatient psych program. And on the 4th event, she brought me her paperwork. And in the like prescription, it said, keep going to these Resilient Stories events because they're helping you. And that was really the first moment where I was like, oh, this is bigger than like, we're going to do an art project and craft and talk. Like that was when I really was like, this is actually way more helpful. It needs to be, bigger.
Spread the love.
And this was, if you guys remember from my last presentation when I was crying about my dissertation and I was very upset that I couldn't finish that at the moment. This is actually when I do get to that. This is what I will study, is the impact that this type of structured event has on women with trauma. But it's not just for women. I do have men who show up.
Well, yeah, because John was just talking about getting together and doing my hair, so we were talking about that.
No,
thank you for that.
But I have men who come to the events. You'll see, there's a guy here, one there. But they come. I'll never forget, we were doing a flower arranging one, and this gentleman usually comes with his wife, but the wife couldn't make it, and he came anyway to the flower, and he had on like a Grateful Dead t-shirt, and this guy's got like a beard, and very dude, and he's sitting there very meticulously with his flowers, like just really going to town, and he's like, this is the most like relaxing, cool thing I've ever done, and he was so excited to take it home to her, and I was just like, how cool is this? This is so cool.
We're touched with our feminine side. It's real
Yeah. So
Have
it's not
one
just
more
for
question.
girls.
This is kind of a little aside, but I have a question for you. Since I've been to your workshops, are you going to incorporate your coloring pages and your coloring books with any of this? Because those are really,
Yeah.
I don't know if people know about that, but those really are great.
Yep. So that's
Therapy.
the coloring book actually started because I was giving, so each event you come to, you get a free coloring page. And those originally started as just like a set of 6 pages with one free page for buying the set of 6. The free page was the page I would take to each of these events. And when you purchase the license for this and you get the event kit, that is part of the workbook, is the coloring page. And then I didn't even get to talk about the affiliate options and all of that. Well, you can see me later for coffee. We'll talk about that. But that was how the coloring books got started, was because I had all of these sets of coloring pages that I had made for each event. And I was like, these really should just be in one place. And then I made the book and the journal questions in there. And so that is how the coloring book came to life. So, yeah.
Did we cover your last question, the $1 million question? Let's do it.
So today I am looking for help finding the target demo in any city. So this is, as you said, repeatable. It's something I want to be doing. And like I said, it's part of there's a bigger path for all of this. This is just the first step of it. But in order to follow my biggest goals and dreams, I need these in cities. So if you guys can help me either expand who I think the target demo is or connect me with any therapists, life coaches, health people you may know in other places, I would love to do that. If you're not on the Resilient Stories newsletter, scan this little QR code and sign up. That's where there's always a coupon to the event in there. And you find out what event it is. And then you can connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, and I love to have coffee meetings. So.
Can you tell them the little secret about what this actually was?
Oh, yes. I was like, I have a secret? What's my secret? I'm not good at those. So part of the living in the RV and driving around, what I'm going to be doing is taking this presentation to other 1 Million Cups communities along my travels, and I will just work that path into where I go.
I like it.
Yep, the little roadshow, exactly. And I'll be doing pop-up events in other cities and places as I travel. So there'll be times where in the RV I might stay for 6 weeks in one place because I'm going to do a pop-up event, a book signing at a bookstore, right? The whole deal. Do you have an RV? Okay. Okay. Well.
I'll go with you.
I told my husband yesterday. Right? She probably wouldn't follow us. So I told my husband last night.
You sold your husband last night?
No, I told him.
Oh.
I told my husband. I'm selling the house, but I told the husband that I want to paint the RV, right? Like I want to wrap it in Resilient Stories colors and the logo and Spark Deal, the whole thing, and literally just drive this thing around the freaking country. And he's just I married the perfect man for me. I really did. Because he's just like, oh, that would be really cool. And I'm like, yep, you're going to live in a pink and green house and drive it around. Yeah, so
That's
this
awesome.
presentation I hope to give at 1 Million Cups along the journey.
That's a great. I love that you talked about that. Thank you for prompting that, Emily. 'Cause that is the power of the 1 Million Cups community.
Well,
right?
Emily.
That's so cool.
Well, and Emily, as part of the organizing team for 1 Million Cups, she's been able to connect with a lot of people in other communities and things. And you were telling me, I think it was at you mentioned it in our town hall that we did about the gentleman who did this and like. What did you say it was? Some crazy, all I heard was crazy amount. And I was like.
Yeah, I think now I go over that now, but yeah, he has presented a lot of times and different all that thing that he get that part of his business.
Yep. And so that's what
so
I'm going to
cool.
do from the RV. And he's multiplied his business by multiple millions. Yes. So.
And it's free. All right. Well, I'm going to put a big hand for Danielle.
Thank you, everybody.